The meaning behind red pill has not changed. The only thing that's changed is what's being promoted. And that's what I want to get into for the last part of this video. The last major point that I want to make is that there's a reason why the PUAs, traditional conservatives, those that advocate for what I mentioned with like a poly type of relationship where your partner's having sex with other people, which is not really a relationship at all as far as I'm concerned. But hey, right? People that want to do that, they can. But to promote this kind of stuff within the men's community, this has been done on purpose. And the reason this has been done on purpose, these sort of negative aspects of the manosphere, as I discussed in the first part of the video, along with any other message that doesn't help men, right? Even if that message comes from a guy that says he's MGTOW or an MRA or whatever, even though I generally have a positive view over those groups, you can come out and say you're MGTOW and you're MGTOW and married or whatever. That's happened in the past. And it's all nonsense, right? All of this stuff has been promoted on purpose by social media platforms, primarily YouTube, but also the mainstream media. All of this stuff has been put out there by essentially corporations that control the flow and dissemination of information and what videos get seen and don't get seen, because they will basically support anything other than men making decisions that are actually healthy for themselves. They will support any alternative, including, oh, just find a trad wife, or oh, just be poly, or oh, let's redefine the red pill into something that doesn't actually represent the core fundamental idea of what a red pill is. Let's do this because we have to subvert the message that men should actually be looking out for themselves. We have to subvert the message that men are better off rejecting most of what society has told them about themselves and about how they should see themselves in relation to women. That is the last thing that the corporate elites and those that control the flow of information to a large extent, their control may not be complete yet, but they want more power. That's the last thing they want men to do, is to start doing things in their own interest truly. Because if you can get men to continue to chase women, if you can get men to continue to invest in a relationship because they think they found a unicorn, a committed relationship, then you're not going to have any sort of change, right? They're going to just continue to manipulate the dynamic at play. Women are already pretty much in control of this dynamic, along with weak men. And so you're just going to continue to get men to be part of the system, to stay on the so-called plantation. Right? That's another analogy that's sometimes overused, but it works here. This is the goal. The goal is to get men to do anything other than look after their own self-interest and what is actually healthy for them over the long run. Get them to chase women instead. Get them to sign up for some role play, I'm a traditional man type of relationship instead. Get them to think that somehow if you allow your girl to be poly, that somehow that's a positive thing for you, even though a woman's intimacy is one of the few things that she can really offer to a man, especially today when women don't do anything else in relationships, frankly. This is all being put out on purpose because if you encourage these sorts of things and you monetize literally these sorts of messages, the PUA and TradCon messages, then honestly, you're preventing men from actually changing anything. You're preventing men from actually putting out the real information. You're supporting these falsehoods and this redefining of the red pill as an example, because that allows you to drown out the voices of truth, to drown out the voices that are giving you real information based on what actually happens, for example, in the family courts for these people that tried to have TradCon relationships or relationships that were based on a traditional model, or the men that were accused of all these bad things by a woman that got jaded because the man only used her for sex from a PUA type of standpoint. The strategy of just trying to sleep with as many women as you can. Oh, look, I got an STD, or oh, look, I got a false accusation. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to promote the idea that men should just continue to chase women and continue to want to live for the benefit of society. And that's why, on purpose, in my opinion, the manosphere and the men's community is in decline more than anything else. You can blame certain men going their own way in MRAs too, maybe in some cases, but for the most part, I think their messages have been healthy and consistent. I think that these unhealthy messages have been put out on purpose, while other channels such as my own, even though I'm a very small content creator, I'm under no delusion that I'm one of the best content creators out there. In my opinion, I'm not. But the reason why so many of us have been shadow banned, had our channels deleted, and everything else, and have been denied monetization, it's because they want the PUA TradCon message put out there instead. This has been done on purpose as a way to try to destroy the men's community from the inside out. And it's been largely successful over the past several years. I look at where the men's community was when I first discovered it in 2014 and 2015, when I started making content in 2017, and where it is now in 2023. And I think that you can say, well, men just didn't support each other enough, or men just decided that they were going to engage in drama. And in some cases, that's true. But I think the biggest difference, the biggest factor, has really been the corporate entities manipulating the situation as much as they can to promote the bad messages and to drown out the good messages. Because I still see quality content being made. I don't believe that the men's community failed on its own accord. I think it failed because that's the way that YouTube and other content streaming platforms and social media, you could probably even talk about Facebook to some extent, but this is what they've wanted, right? They want the men's community to fail to actually help men, because if men walk away and men decide that they had enough and men want to actually speak the truth on these issues, that's when things could actually change, and not in the favor of the elites that run these corporations, not in the favor of the ruling class that controls the flow of information and what you can say that's acceptable versus what's not acceptable to say. They don't want things to get better for men, or for men to pursue what could actually make a positive impact on themselves, because if men pursue that, they're not pursuing what benefits women, what benefits the state, and what benefits essentially the ruling class. And I really think that that's why, that's the number one reason, more than the infighting or just the sort of dickheads that have made content that have steered men toward trying to get married or trying to continue to pursue women or actually doing things that are violent that they shouldn't do. I don't think that's the main problem. We're just talking about the same things over and over again, right? Well, you need to stop talking about women. That's not the real issue at hand, in my opinion. The issue at hand is the deliberate promoting of entities that I've described in the first part of this video that really don't have a good message on purpose to basically destroy the movement. Or MGTOW in itself, for example, is not really a movement, but to destroy the philosophy, the MRA aspect of it as well, which is a movement, to basically subvert it as much as possible so that the good messages that can actually help men get drowned out by all the you need to pursue women, you need to find a trad wife type of rhetoric and type of thought process, right? It's done on purpose. And the same thing as a final point with redefining the red pill, or trying to redefine it to mean something other than the truth, other than where things actually stand between men and women today, other than the darker aspects of female nature having no constraint on them whatsoever, while everything is men's fault. It's, anything can be red pilled now, because we don't want men to actually be red pilled. We don't want this information to actually get out there. We don't want men to learn about the dangers of marriage and hypergamy and Brie Folt's law. That's what really is the core problem here. And unfortunately, although I don't want to sound too negative with what I'm saying here, I think a lot of this can be predicted. What did you think was going to get promoted? Men trying to help other men, or men trying to help men, or teach men, not help them, teach them to chase after women better, or to basically see themselves as a utility object so that they can find a trad wife? Right? What do you think is going to get promoted? Is it going to be the men speaking the truth, so that men very well might decide to reject what actually benefits society and what benefits women in favor of benefiting themselves? Or Or are you going to promote all these pretenders and the people that want men to stay on the so-called plantation? Well, it only makes sense that the latter would be supported instead of the former, right? It only makes sense that that's what they would go for, because if men walk away en masse, this society collapses. And that's the absolute last thing that those that control the flow of information, that control what videos get promoted, that control what the truth supposedly is, what is red-pilled supposedly, those people who have too much control over those things already know that if the truth gets out there for what it really is, that society is screwed, because a lot of men will choose to just walk away. And so unfortunately, I think this was actually pretty predictable, that stuff like the PUAs and traditional conservative arguments and ideas about life and relationships will get put out there and promoted instead of the MGTOW or MRA view of things, talking about things for how they really are. And again, the incels, as I discussed in the first video, they can really go either way. If you can get them to actually basically go their own way and focus on things that are positive instead of their failures with women, there's still hope for them, but they're also going to be used by these same elites, by the same people that, again, have promoted the negativity, because they're going to be seen as violent and dangerous, and they're going to be put out there, and we've already seen this, to the forefront in terms of, well, look at what these people within the men's community do. They're bad. So they're going to get used as well in terms of doing whatever they can, doing what is possible, basically, from the perspective of the corporations and the government, to continue to hurt men, continue to get men to make bad decisions, to continue to get men to not value themselves enough, to not focus on what actually gives them a viable plan to have a good life. They don't want men to do that, because if men start thinking about that, they're not going to give a crap what society thinks about them anymore. They're going to reject a lot of this crap. They're either going to go their own way, or they're going to do something very similar to that. They're going to reject marriage. They're going to reject conventional relationships. They're not going to get a woman pregnant. They're not going to give their best fruits of their labor to society anymore. And if that happens, everyone's screwed that's part of the system. And so it's very predictable, in my opinion, what was going to happen. And this is what I see taking place. Looking back on it now, I can't say I always had this figured out, but looking back on it now, I think that the claim that the Manosphere sort of imploded on its own is overstated. I think that it's just all about what's been promoted and what's been put out there as being these negative messages that don't help men being put out there on purpose. Whereas a lot of the good content that's still about making good decisions for yourself, thinking things through, realizing that building a life with a woman may not be a viable plan for you, and that you might be able to focus your energy on better things, that has been drowned out on purpose. And so I wanted to give my take on that, guys. I think I'm pretty much going to leave it there, right? I think that the red pill still represents the truth, a truth that most people reject or don't want to accept or are just unaware of, and that hasn't changed just because you have these pretenders that are coming in pretending to be aware of red pill concepts when they can't even acknowledge things like women primarily having the value of intimacy and love in quote marks, sex basically, that they give to a man, right? That exclusive access is one of the few things that women give to men, and probably one of the few things that they've really done that's of value for men. I'm not saying women can't be of value at a human level more than that, but in relationships, they primarily give sex. So how is being poly red-pilled? It's not. How is getting married red-pilled? It's not. It really isn't. I can understand if men basically are red pill, but they choose to take the purple pill because they feel like they have to. I get that. But that's definitely not red pill to say that you can just find the right woman to marry. That's nonsense in Western society, in Western culture at least. And so that has been redefined on purpose. It's been made unclear, murky on purpose. The red pill itself hasn't changed, but how it's defined has been changed in an attempt to subvert the message of you need to look after yourself as an individual guy. And again, the same thing with why the Manosphere is in decline in general. I think it's been pretty much processed in that way on purpose over time so that the movement or the philosophy would be subverted, so that men would continue to basically think that they need to seek validation from women in society and play these little games instead of looking after their own actual best interests. So that's my take on this subject, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you think that I'm wrong, that the men's movement self-imploded because of men themselves? Or is it because this is sort of the direction that YouTube and other content providers, other sort of entities that control the flow of content, I should say, what they have basically decided to do? Because I think that's what's really happened. I think the manospheric decline is mostly because of people that talk about real issues, like I attempt to do, have been shadow banned or deleted, while all this other crap has been promoted that's not really red pill and that's not really helpful to men. That's what I think has gone on more than anything else. Let me know what you guys think. I really think a lot of this is predictable. I'm going to continue to make content in terms of what I think is real, and whether I never get more subscribers or views than I get now, that's okay. But a lot of guys are going to be dissuaded from that. And I think it's by design. I think that these kinds of voices have been drowned out or silenced completely on purpose. I think that's the main reason for why it's so much less clear what the red pill is now just by watching content. I think that's why it seems like the manosphere is in such a decline, and it is, but I think it's been done that way behind the scenes on purpose. I think it's been set up to implode like that rather than men themselves just not succeeding with the community. I think that it's been subverted. Let me know what you guys think. Am I totally wrong on this or not? But that's my view on the red pill and where things stand within the men's community today.